That was a tune called Waltz New, and my name's Jim Hall, and this is Satoshi Inoue's son. And this is volume 2 of the jazz guitar instruction videos. This one has to do with self-expression, and it's intended for the slightly more advanced player, at least maybe as advanced as we are anyway, up to the professional, I think. And I'll talk a little bit about the tune that we just played, which... How
about that tuning guide? A.
Oh yeah, right. We'll give them an A. You give them an A, you know, the tune to. In case you want to tune up to us. It may not be an exact, accurate A, but it's around where we are. So the tune that we played, Waltz New, it's interesting. I feel, even though I wrote it, I can say I think it's interesting in this context that it's already a variation on a melody, which is Someday My Prince Will Come. It's those chords anyway. It's not that melody, but it's those chords. And it's also called Waltz New because it's a bit like a tune that Sonny Rollins wrote, which was called Waltz Hot. Remember that?
Waltz Hot?
Waltz Hot, right. Hot. Yeah. By Sonny Rollins. So just play the first chord, the B flat chord. So I have this, the D seventh, and then C minor, G seventh, right? G. Right. That's kind of hard to. It goes to C flat for just a minute. In a way, it almost has a classical feel to it, like that last phrase. right up the triad, the B flat triad. But also, I feel kind of good about this tune because it's pretty tightly organized as far as the motive development, and also it has some nice arrival points like that. But the first phrase is this, and it's built on these little motives. Sorry.
So 3 notes.
Right.
It's kind of inversion.
Right. That's right. Thanks. Another variation. And then an inversion. There it is. So it's that 3-note motive all the way through there.
There you go.
There's another one in. So this time it keeps expanding. So we start off with. Then the same idea. It's a little bit wider interval, right? The fifth. So it
gets
really
wider and wider.
Right. It starts out with just whole steps and half steps, and then here we are.
Oh, I see.
Up there. But by the way, this took me a whole day to write, so you can't really call it an improvisation. But I feel good about it anyway. And after that. This is a kind of an inversion again. Instead of this. Right. Then I like this note. Then the 3 notes again. I'm talking about this kind of at length because I think getting this kind of control, this organization over your playing, over your improvising, is really a big part of becoming a competent improviser. Don't you find that? If you can hear what you want to play and get it out of the guitar and keep it organized tightly, I really think it's so important. So this one starts with that motive and keeps working on it. And then again, it's just a little bit different rhythm. And then, yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, 3 notes.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
I see.
And then this next phrase starts to expand the interval a little bit. It's a little fourths and now fifths. So we started with this, and now we're at fifths. So and then it moves ahead a little bit.
How so?
Right. Yeah, I like that part. And then that arrives to this. That's another point that we talked about earlier, is the idea of upbeat and downbeat and having arrival points. It's like a F minor seven. that has kind of a almost a classical sound to it, like that kind of sound. So it's this. The interval opens up, and then I go through a modulation into C flat major for just a minute. G flat 7. I guess you could call that a B major 7, but from my background, it's a C flat because it wants to pull down to the
It's a matter of spelling.
That's right. It's a matter of spelling, exactly. But one of the, which reminds me, one of the most important things I did was I spent 5 years in a regular kind of a conservatory, music conservatory. I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music. That was a great help.
What did you major?
I majored in music theory.
Not a guitar playing.
No guitar. No.
No guitar.
No, there was no guitar in the school, and there was no jazz taught. There were a few schools that offered jazz, but not very many, and this wasn't one of them. But what it did was I got to hear all kinds of. I heard from Gregorian chant up to electronic music, and I wrote some 12-tone pieces, and I wrote a string quartet and all that. And I think it really had a big effect on the way that I hear music and the way I perceive it, and just the idea of putting a composition together with these motives and developing it. I really, Sonny Rollins, I think, does that naturally, but it took me 5 years to learn it. The idea of motive development, I think maybe we could demonstrate that on a standard. Maybe we could use the chords that are similar to the ones of body and soul, or something like that, in D flat. And why don't I play the chords, and you can improvise for a while and see if you've learned anything here today. We go about 1, 2, 3, 4. What were you thinking of there? What was the motive that you were working with? I don't mean to stop you in the middle of an inspiration. Sound like about a 5-note motive?
I don't know.
Oh, I see what you mean. I was counting instead of measuring. It sounded like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I was trying to play some motive which I played before, some kind of variation, maybe. I forgot.
Well, the only reason I was aware of it really was because that's what we've been talking about. It just sounded like a beautiful improvisation to me, which is the idea. But anyway, let's try it again, and I won't interrupt you. We'll do it all the way through. 1, 2.
You said.
Okay. You played it much better than I did. I got too aware of the of developing the
Oh yeah,
the ideas.
I forgot the matter. You know,
good.
We are talking.
That's good. It's better if you forget. I think that's part of the point, though. I think it was already in your unconscious, and you do it kind of naturally. I can't remember precisely what motive I started working on, but I was trying to develop a motive. Sometimes if you get it on your mind too much, it can inhibit you. But it was.
Oh, when you improvise.
Yeah.
If you stick too much to the motive.
Yeah.
Sometimes that prevents you from.
Free expression.
Stretching out.
Yeah, it does. And I think maybe I was too much focused on it, and that happens sometimes. But I still think it's a good practice to get to control. That was supposed to have something to do with the kind of whimsical, almost humorous side of Miro's painting, and I stayed with just maybe a few elements. I think I was imagining this as being one element, this little chord, and then these kind of figures, sort of running figures, and then some funny major chords with a seventh on the bottom, that sort of thing. And I tried to develop those motives again, even though they weren't based on any chord progression. And occasionally, when I've gotten a student who plays the guitar really well, who maybe I have trouble talking with about music, I'll take that idea a little bit further and I'll just detune the guitar completely. Let's see what happens here. And sort of say, well, see if you can make some music out of this. So let's see if I can. I'll just randomly detune the thing. I don't know how it's going to happen. I'll never get it in tune again, but... Let's see what I can make out of this now. I have this mess. So that's two motives, right? This, I have no idea what the pitches are. That was a little bit similar maybe to Miro, but I had no idea what the sounds were going to be until I actually hit the guitar, and I tried to make something out of it as it went along. Satoshi-san and I were going to talk a little bit now about motive development in a slightly different way. We've been sort of staying within the chord structure, I think, pretty carefully. But it's possible to play sort of slightly far out by doing motive development also. And I think that by staying with some kind of development, that it adds a logic to your playing that that'll carry through no matter how far out it gets. So we're going to try something based roughly on the chords to Autumn Leaves, and see how that goes. So I'll start with just sort of playing around within the chords and gradually wander out of them, not too terribly far, I guess. So we'll do about 3 choruses, I guess, about like that. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I get a little further out. I'll take it a little further. That kind of demonstrated the motive development idea in a little more extreme version, I think, and the idea of that, for me anyway, was that if you work with material, I think that your ear will accept it, even though it gets kind of far out. Satoshi and I felt we would talk a little bit about playing rhythm on the guitar and different variations on that. The obvious thing, one of the first things I heard was a great Freddie Green, who just sort of played 4 to a bar with that sort of thing. And from there, George Van Epps played really remarkable stuff on rhythm, very complicated things. And one thing that I got to doing a lot with group, I played with a couple groups. I played with Jimmy Jufrey and Bob Brookmeyer for a while, and there was no bass. So I would take a bass line and kind of harmonize it, just with 3 notes, maybe something on the 3rd string, and something on the 4th, and something on the 6th. So it became sort of a harmonized bass line in there. So maybe we'll play a few choruses of blues where I'll play some rhythm for you, and I'll do this harmonized bass line thing. You do it great too, but you play the solo, and I'll play the rhythm. There you go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So what I did amounted mostly to just those 3-part chords on those strings. In some ways, the top note can almost be random. It's mostly the bass line. And then I went to the same idea, only on 5, 3, and 2. Well, that's a 4-part chord, but basically they're just 3 parts. Sometimes I go on to an inside string just because the line needs it, but this line, so I just played, or whatever. Sorry. And that time I was just dragging the little finger along. See. 4 parts. But it's that motion, that arrival point that you're after. Yeah.
How do you mute the strings which you are not
which
playing?
I'm not using. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I guess in this case, let's see, I'm not...
Because you're strumming.
Right.
This.
So I guess I must... This has taken me so many years that I forget how it started, but it must be kind of an angle down here with the pick, and also I'm muting the 5th string.
Using
yeah, right. But I think I almost do it unconsciously by now. If I played classical guitar, I'd play it like that. But think you can kind of mute with the finger that's holding, like in this case, I'm playing the 6th string and the 3rd and the 2nd, and I've got the inside pretty well muted with that finger. And probably what will happen is that your ear will dictate to your hand what to do, and right? You hope that happens anyway. So that your ear says, "Well, I don't want to hear that."
Oh, this
right.
5th string.
So something says mute it, so you mute it with that finger.
Yes.
It is a good question, and I'm not exactly sure how I do it, except it's evolved over the years so that I mute it with one of the fingers. How about yourself? You do the same thing.
I think yeah, it's same way as you do.
But play some of that, and then I'll play over. Right. You have a nice right hand stroke too. It's a little crisper than mine. You're playing. Do that some more.
So when you're doing this harmonized bass line, your concern is more to a lowest note.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The lowest note, because it is the bass note, and that's one of the concerns. The other is the rhythmic impulse of arriving someplace, just like you were doing. You do that great.
Thank you.
So
there's a famous recording you and Mr. Bill
Evans.
With
Bill Evans, yeah.
We did My Funny Brother.
Yeah.
It's a classical recording, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And on that one, I'm playing rhythm for Bill, and a lot of times he doesn't play his left hand at all. He just keeps the left hand out of the way because I have that covered. So that's sort of what we do, where if you play the bass line, then I play just like the right hand of the piano or something. If you play the chord, then. And I think that's pretty much the idea of the harmonized bass line. I'd mentioned earlier, and we've kind of alluded to it at various times, that this is a lot more than just a musical process for me. It has to do with being a person and meeting other people, meeting people from different cultures, like yourself. And that's a big part of music for me. And it's easy for me to say this, I guess, because I do make my living as a musician. So you might say maybe it's insincere, but I consider music so important that it's less important for me to be a professional musician, I think, than to have known about music and to have it part of my life. I think that it really adds a huge dimension to life. So much of education is aimed at, I think, competition and that sort of thing, and commercial success, all of which is important, but music gives you I think has a broadening effect on people, and it helps you to communicate with other people, being able to play together and all that sort of thing. Some of the favorite experiences that I've had have been experiences with people who aren't professionals, but maybe do something else for a living, but love music so much that they really want to learn it. And I run into that in these workshops that I do around the world, actually. And sometimes professional musicians have trouble making a living anyway, so it kind of comes and goes, right? So I guess my main point is that music is already you're already getting paid back just by being able to play music, and for me that's the important part of it.
How to prepare the recording date or club date?
Oh, right.
Mentally, physically.
Yeah.
In your case.
Yeah. Well, I think there's several different elements, and it depends on the situation. Sometimes if we're traveling and doing one-nighters, you can get very tired physically, and sometimes your hands get stiff from lifting amplifiers or driving cars, right, that sort of thing, or doing karate maybe. Not me. Or playing tennis. So I'm always very careful to warm up my hands, my fingers beforehand, sometimes with warm water and stretching, the same as you do in the morning with warm water and then stretching my fingers so that I don't surprise any sleeping muscles in there. Another thing I do, which I've talked about before, is I prepare the set of music very carefully so that I don't have to go on the bandstand and then worry about what we're going to play. I like to have that prepared way ahead of time. And I'm very careful about the sequence of tunes. I usually play a set of maybe 5 tunes, generally 5 or 6 tunes. Even on a concert, if there's 2 parts to a concert, maybe each half of the concert will have 5 tunes. But they're really carefully organized so that I have some variety in it. I maybe do something in 3/4, some kind of waltz, different meters and different keys and different tempos, and different feelings. I do a ballad, maybe a blues, and something kind of up like a calypso. Then another thing is just the mental preparation. Sometimes is very important. No matter what kind of mood you're in or I'm in, the musician is in, I feel that the audience deserves a good performance, the people who come to listen, because usually they paid some money to listen, and I think they deserve a good performance. So I try to put all other things behind me, at least for the time that I'm on the bandstand, and just concentrate on the music. And sometimes, for me, that involves maybe getting some quiet time beforehand to not exactly meditation, but something like that, where I get my thoughts organized. Also, sometimes it's fun to be around the musicians that you're going to perform with, so you can sort of joke together and maybe have something to eat and get a friendly feeling, because you have to be friends on the bandstand, right? So I think all those things come into also being on time. I really hate for people to be late. And if I arrive late for a performance or almost late, and then it's very difficult to get prepared. So I try to get there really early, get relaxed, and get used to the acoustics in the room, like this room that we're recording in here, that we're filming in. It has unusual acoustics, and we've gotten used to that. And so each room is a little different from the others.
Yeah, maybe playing at the Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And this room would be different.
It's quite different, yeah.
Village Vanguard.
Village Vanguard is
a different acoustic.
Right. And smoky.
Smoky?
Yeah.
Oh!
Cigarette.
I see.
Yeah. You don't get that in Carnegie Hall. And along with that, I think, comes the idea of considering the audience. The Village Vanguard is a marvelous jazz club that's been in New York for 40 years, I guess 50 years maybe. It's a relatively small club. In a huge auditorium, maybe like Carnegie Hall, the people are, it seems like about 6 miles away. So for me, I think almost consciously of the person in the very last row and trying to reach that person with a note somehow. And sometimes that involves maybe playing fewer notes than usual because you allow time for the note to get out there.
I see.
And in the acoustics, as a matter of fact, sometimes the notes will all run into each other if you play too many notes in a...
Especially room is echoey in a Carnegie Hall.
Right, with a lot of echo. Whereas in a small room or in somebody's living room or practice room, I think the technical part is a little easier to project. What I've done occasionally with students, and myself too, I fall into this. It's easy to get into this little circle between yourself and the guitar. This the whole thing, and you forget you forget to project. So what I'll do is occasionally I'll have a student sit maybe in my kitchen, which is quite a ways away, and I'll stand at the front window and I'll say, okay, now make the notes reach me, and think consciously of that. So it's not just going from yourself to your knee or something, or your foot. It's going all the way into the living room and back, and I really think that's important. The same idea comes into effect, I think, in terms of making a solo build and reach a certain point. In that, if you have a huge solo in front of you, like maybe you're going to play for 15 minutes, I think you can make the shape a little different. You can have the climax of it maybe 7 or 8 minutes into your solo and then narrow down. And then, on the other hand, if you only have an 8-bar solo, you have to shape it up really differently, like a small model airplane, so that you say your whole story in 8 bars. And in the days of the before your time, in the days of the 78 records, did you have 78 records? 78 RPM? Right. You started with 33, right? The tunes on the record often would only be 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes, and a number of really famous players built their whole reputation maybe on just an 8-bar solo.
Very short solo.
Very short solo, because there wasn't enough time for a long solo. Whereas John Coltrane, I think, was one of the first guys to really stretch out for maybe 20 minutes on one tune. The Indian music with the ragas and the sitar players, they really stretch the time out a lot. They have long solos. But I think that's an important consideration, like how long is your solo going to be, and is it just a solo based on one chord, or is it a tune with a bridge? Like most of the things we've played today have bridges, except for the blues. I think those are important considerations, and they're similar. It's sort of analogous to the idea of whether you're playing in Carnegie Hall, which would be a 20-minute solo, or the Village Vanguard, which is maybe a 32-bar solo, that sort of thing. So I think about all those things before I go on the stage, and certainly after I'm on the stage, I think about it. We've talked about self-expression. Volume 3 deals with the guitar in the setting of a quartet. And self-expression on the guitar arrived at through the process of developing, listening to what you play and developing it. I think basically finding your own voice in jazz, which I really feel is important. And for a final piece, we're going to play a tune that I wrote, and Satoshi-san helped me find a title for it. It's called Sesaragi, which he explained earlier has to do with the murmuring sound of a small brook. And it's supposed to, it has to do with my feelings about Japan and the people and the culture and the countryside. And it's meant to convey a peaceful feeling. And we'd like to finish with that. And thank you very much. Thank you.